According to most sources, a significant majority of people who start writing a novel never finish it. The estimates I've seen suggest 97% of people who begin writing a book don't complete it. If 100 of you start a novel tomorrow, that means only 3 of you are going to finish your novels. But I think we can do better than that. There are very simple things you can do to get ready to write your next book, things that will make the entire process smoother and more enjoyable and will greatly improve your odds of finishing your next book. Welcome, fellow writers, readers, and creators. My name is Mark. I write science fiction, fantasy, and horror. This is The Edge, where I explore writing, world building, and how to enhance your creativity. The goal of this channel is to help you become better writers and to build a dynamic and supportive community. So be sure to say hi down in the comments. Today we're going to talk about pre-writing, specifically 7 things you can do to get ready to write that book. So let's dive in. First thing is brainstorm your core idea. You need to have a great idea, an original idea. Otherwise, what's even the point of writing a book? If you haven't found that key idea, something that really excites you and inspires you, try this brainstorming exercise. Grab a blank page or an open document and free write for 10 minutes. You've probably heard of free writing, but let's go over it again just in case. Set a timer and write until that timer goes off. Don't stop writing. Don't edit. Don't read what you've written. Just type, bum, 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 bum. No judgment, and don't stop until the time is up. Once you've done that, look at what you have. Highlight the most compelling ideas to refine later. In fact, do that right away. Take the ones you like the best and repeat the exercise, just focusing on those ideas. Once you have an idea you like, hone in on it. Ask yourself questions about it. Brainstorm possible answers. And questions that work great for this to really flesh out that idea are, what if? What if X? What if Y? What about? Who would? Who would suffer the most? Who would care the most? Who would be involved in this situation? And focusing in on that question, who's going to suffer the most? Who's going to care the most? Who's going to be impacted the most? That helps me find characters whose stories I can tell, who are likely to be the most interesting characters to tell the kind of story that I'm trying to tell. The second pre-writing exercise is character development. Characters drive the story. Arguably, they're the most important thing in the story. And pre-writing gives you a chance to explore their motivations, their flaws, and their relationships in depth. And it helps you to decide which characters are the most interesting, which characters you're the most motivated to write about, and it gives you time to get to know them before you dive in. Now, character development is a huge topic. I could do 10 videos on this and I would barely be scratching the surface, but here's a few ideas for you to start with. Use character profiles or character sheets, just a list of attributes. What are they like? What do they eat? What's their job? Where do they live? Who's in their family? And also look at story features as you're going through this list of attributes. What are their goals, their fears, their secrets? How does the core theme of the story impact that particular character? You can also explore their backstory. Where did they come from? How did they get to where they are at the start of the book? And when you do this, you're going to figure out what their motivations are, what drives them forward. What are they afraid of? What things will they back away from? What are their desires? What are they seeking? What's going to drive their forward action in the story? What's their theory of control? In their past, what strategies worked for them, strategies they're going to try again, even if those strategies are not the right ones for the situation they find themselves in? And what's their personal stake in the story? If you know where they came from, you're going to know why they care and how what's about to happen will affect them. Another tool, character interviews. Just have a conversation with your character. Ask them questions. Hey, why did you leave Jenny? Hey, why do you hate your job so much? Hey, why do you want to climb that mountain so bad? Hey, how come you never go to Chicago? These kind of questions can really drive out little details about the characters and help you get to know them better. A third pre-writing exercise is world building. World building creates the environment where your story unfolds. This step helps you define the rules, history, and culture of your setting. And world building is especially important in genre fiction, but even if you're writing contemporary fiction, you need to do a flavor of world building. You're going to need to do research about your setting, who lives there, what life is like there, and you're going to want to develop fictional things there. Fictional places your characters can go, fictional people they can meet there, things that don't really exist in that place, but in your fictional version of it, you're going to want to tell stories about it. So, some things you can do for world building: you can draw maps, you can define your technology or your magic system, you can look at the social structure of the society that you're writing about. How is it different from where we are now? You can develop the lore and history of the people, the places, the events. And I want you to think about shallow versus deep world building. This is a pretty important decision to make early on. If you do a shallow world building, you're going to use and rely upon things people are familiar with already, things that are analogous to what's in our own world. So people are going to live in families. They're going to buy houses. They're going to have mortgages. They're going to have jobs. They will have been educated in schools in a certain way. It's all going to be very familiar to the reader, so you don't have to explain a lot. And then you can focus on a few changes versus deep world building. Deep world building is where something is completely different from what we're used to. It could be an alien species. It could be a society that's been shaped by completely different forces and beliefs. And the thing about deep world building is it's very interesting, especially to genre readers, but it takes a lot of work and time to develop. And when you're writing your book, you have to work a lot harder to introduce your reader to this world and give them all the information they need to understand it without boring them to death and without confusing them. And you'll find that a lot of the most revered examples of genre fiction, books like Dune, fantasies like Game of Thrones, they tend to have deeper world building where their world operates by a slightly different set of rules, and they have to walk the readers through this. So be sure you know what kind of world building you're shooting for. Is it going to be shallow? Is it going to be familiar with just a few things that are different? Or is it going to be deep where something is entirely different? Now we get to the fourth pre-writing exercise, exploring your themes. Now, themes provide emotional depth in your story. They unify the events and the characters. And pre-writing is the time you want to explore these ideas and ensure you can embed them in your narrative and you know what they are. You know what you're shooting for. What's the question you're trying to answer in your story? What's the idea that you want to have behind every action and decision? Now, if you have a strong theme, you don't want to hit people over the head with it. You don't want to be preachy about it, but you do want to understand what it is so you can carefully layer it in. It can define your word choice. It can define how characters react to things. It can define the emotional tone of the story. And if you don't know what your theme is, your story's probably going to fall flat. People might zip through it, and the surface level of the story might make sense, but they're going to walk away feeling unsatisfied. Like, who cares? Why did it matter? But if you have a powerful theme and it's really layered in there, they're going to go through the story. They're going to be sucked in. They're going to get to the end, and they're going to keep thinking about it. They're going to remember it. They're going to talk about it with their friends because it had an idea underlying everything on the surface that really got to them, really got under their skin, into their mind. And once you've explored these basic things, you've got your characters, you've got your core idea, you've got your themes worked out, you've done some world building. Now is a good time to craft a log line or a pitch, an elevator speech, if you will, for your story. It's something that distills your story into one sentence. As a writer, this helps you focus on the core idea, helps you avoid distractions, and helps you understand if something's really important to telling this story or if it's something you can leave aside for another story. It's also a good way to practice pitching your idea so you can really sell your idea to other people, get them interested in it. So think about some things that you can compress into this one sentence description. You need to include who's the protagonist, whose story is it. It's really good if you can establish what their goals are and what the stakes are if they fail in whatever the story's about. And you want to keep it short. You want to keep it compelling. Leave out unnecessary details. Now, if you made it this far, remember to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. That's how YouTube knows you got something out of this video, and it really helps the channel. And if you watched my 2025 video, you know that we have a novel writing challenge running in 2025. So check out that video if you want to know more. Now, the next pre-writing exercise you can do is to outline your plot. Outlines organize your ideas into a coherent structure, and they ensure your story has direction and momentum. Now, not everyone likes outlines, but trust me, an outline will improve your odds of A, finishing, B, writing something worth reading, and C, having a much easier time when you get to the revision phase of this process. And see, you'll have a much easier time in your second and subsequent drafts, especially if you're new at this. So to do this, choose a structure. It can be anything, a 3-act structure, hero's journey, save the cat, or your own structure if you want, and define the key plot points. This is important even if you're a pantser. What is the inciting incident? What is the climax? What is the resolution? And I find this is a good exercise to come up with 3, 5, 10 different versions of your story that all kind of focus on a different plot structure and see which one is the most interesting. And as you're outlining, you want to be a little bit loose. You want to leave room for flexibility, things you're going to detail out during drafting. You don't want to overdo it. You don't want to constrain yourself, and you don't want to spend too much time on it. And the last exercise for pre-writing that I'm going to talk about today, it's not the only one you can do, but it's a good way to finish up. Once you have a mature world, a good understanding of your characters, you can do this exercise, and it's going to really get you ready to write that novel. And that is write scene snippets. Write short, standalone scenes that just help you experiment with tone, point of view, voice, character dynamics, and maybe jot out a few critical moments in your story just to see how they feel. Are they easy to write? Do they make sense? Does it flow? Do you have a good voice? Do you have a voice that you're ready to actually start banging out page after page in? For these short scenes, you can focus on key moments that define relationships or stakes. You can experiment with different tones, different voices, try to establish the atmosphere, and just play around with variations on it to see which one really fits the story you're trying to tell. And you can do little scenes where you mix and match characters just to see kind of what the character dynamic is, what the chemistry is between different groups of characters. Now get out there and write, you beautiful paragons of imagination and wisdom.